Hi everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Get Scared with Gracie. Today I have some really interesting stories about killer clowns, mostly from 2016 when that whole thing was happening, but I found a bunch of creepy clown stories, so that's what we're gonna get into today. Last night I watched Jordan Huxhold, Peyton King, and Jake Weber's YouTube video where they stayed at the Clown Motel. It was crazy. That was such a scary video. Their video is what gave me the idea to actually look into these stories, and I'm really excited to read these stories for you guys because a lot of these are really interesting. Without further ado, let's start. I've had lots of technical difficulties today already with this, so this should be interesting. The first story I have is titled "The Clowns in 2016 Almost Killed Me." Before I begin, I want to put down some basic facts about my story. I was 13 at the time of this occurrence and had been reading creepypastas and true stories since I was 11. I live in Carroll Island, a place where you can find a good amount of forestry everywhere. This is located in Baltimore County, and I love hearing Goatman stories about this place. I believe there is one in Carroll Island, but that's not the point. I love this bit of forestry, and it always when I was a child. I lived in this house, still am, since I was 7 to 8. These forests, like any other town, always had some urban legend behind them. Some of these were mostly told by older kids who were just trying to scare the kids who would wander about the streets. The teens would always go into the woods to smoke pot, drink alcohol. I hated that, but it's how they got their kicks. Story starts. Sorry. I need a Red Bull. I was outside of my house sometime near January on a full moon. I can't recall which month perfectly, just know it was a full moon. When some of the clown things were starting to die off and come back in April of 2017. I never believed in them, and I still don't, but that night I think I did. I walked inside my house with me, my brother, and my friend, who we'll call Kyle. Kyle was from Dominican Republic and had always believed in the paranormal, so we had a good bit in common. We walked into my brother's room since it was the largest, and were watching Logan Paul's controversial Suicide Forest video. Once it was done, Kyle remembered it was a full moon and that the clowns were out tonight. I told him they were all hoaxes and insane people on highways. He doubled me by saying that if I didn't believe, they'd come get me. I laughed at his remark to that and told him to stop believing in all that stuff. We got into a conversation for a good 10 minutes when Kyle finally says, "Why don't you go prove it?" I said, "Okay," and told them that I would be back. I know just the place to prove it. There was a little place down the road that was put there for a park, essentially. It wasn't funded. The only thing it had was a small walk bridge that was pretty nice. We called it the Duck Pond, but it actually was Seneca Creek. I'm giving all the location details to give you a better understanding of how scary this place would have been at night. I left the house, got onto my bike, and rode off 2 blocks away. At the entrance of the park is another set of woods that is private property for the houses on the water and some abandoned houses inside. The entrance is easy to see, can't miss it, and personally it looks pretty. As I was walking up to the entrance, I had noticed a foul odor. Keep in mind that this is wildlife, where things die and decompose right there. It wasn't helped that the stench of trash reeking from the trash island. I was about to walk into the park when, I kid you not, something had spoken in a low, somewhat luring voice. "Hey there, kiddo, why don't you come over here?" This is when I went into panic mode. I am someone who isn't scared off so easily, but it was the thought that it could be someone out there, the unknown, which scared me. I turned towards the small patch of bushes near the entrance, and I see something crouched over deep in the bushes facing me. I couldn't tell if it was a clown or a demon. I didn't really care at that point. Even thinking about it is making me paranoid. As I was going to man up and go see what it was, it spoke again. "That's right, come over here." And I hear a sheathing of a blade. That's when I knew it was time to book it. I instantly wailed out in fright, almost peeing myself, and crashed into that bike. I say if I hadn't been riding for many years and built up muscle to power out of there, I would have been done. I floor it back to my house. At this point, my body is in complete hysteria, and Kyle said that once I opened the door, I was not comprehensible. It took me a minute to calm down and realize I shouldn't be so scared. I explained to Kyle and Josh what had just happened. It took me a minute to calm down and realize that I shouldn't be so scared. This is a true story. I'm an upcoming story writer and thought I'd put down a real one first. Thank you for reading. So I looked into a little bit of the comments on that story, and a lot of people don't believe it. And I don't think I necessarily believe it. I don't know. I just feel like since they did write that they are a storyteller or they're a writer, like I feel like it's less believable. Who knows? It could have happened. A lot of weird stuff happened with all of the clowns in 2016, but I think that story was definitely interesting. Also, one of the comments under that story notes that Logan Paul's video didn't even come out until 2018, so the dates don't really line up with this. This story is pretty short, but I'm gonna read it anyways. It's from 1 year ago. I was living in a historic downtown area when the 2017 It was being filmed. Such a good movie. I love that movie. Despite being afraid of clowns, I'm a big Stephen King fan, so I was reading the book in preparation of the movie's release. I was walking down a sidewalk and avoiding a storm drain because the book had already gotten to me. My boyfriend joked that Pennywise was down there waiting for me and maneuvered me in that direction. Lo and behold, there's a bright red clown nose right at the edge of the storm drain. I ran. No thoughts, no direction, only working on pure and primal fear. That story was creepy. I also don't know if I believe that one. It's Reddit. But also, someone could have definitely put the red clown nose there as a joke because of the movie coming out. This next story is from 5 years ago, and it's titled The Reason I Am Scared of Clowns. So this next story is from 5 years ago. There's no title, so we'll just read it. I had 2 clown sightings. The first was pretty tame. I was being pretty closely tailed by a legit hearse. I didn't want to be part of some funeral procession, so I pulled over to let them pass. As they went past, I saw that there were 4 clowns with those creepy rubber clown masks sitting in the front of the hearse. One of them leaned out the window and brandished a Lucille-style baseball bat at me like they were trying to hit my car. Second time, I was at my parents' house, and as I was leaving, I looked across the street, and there was a clown standing under the streetlight staring at the house. I told my dad, who promptly grabbed my grandpa's old skeet shooting rifle that doesn't work, and he doesn't have rounds for it anyway, and he went chasing out of the house with it. The clown took one look at that crazy guy with a gun and a huge grin running at him, and he took off running, leaving one of his sneakers behind like Cinderella. I'm pretty sure that crap ended when people stopped being scared and started wielding bats and guns. Turns out that dressing up as a clown doesn't make you bulletproof. That one was pretty good. I feel like the second story, honestly, I don't know. I feel like neither of those stories are very believable. It's just like the first clown sighting she had, I feel like that's just the first clown sighting they had, I feel like that just is such a weird experience, like, happening. That's really weird. It sounds made up. The second story, also not very believable, but it's more believable that the person dressed as a clown ran away after he brought a gun out. I don't know. I don't necessarily think I believe either one of those stories. I have my Amityville horror shirt on. Isn't that cute? I got it at TJ Maxx. So our next story is pretty long. It's from 5 years ago. There's no title, so I'll just read it. My school had received warnings that clowns were going to raid, so the head teacher, principal for the Americans, was ready to put us on lockdown the second any clowns were seen. Last lesson, I went to the toilet, and as I was coming back, the lockdown signal went off. Normal procedure says if you are out of class when the school goes into lockdown, then you need to go to the nearest classroom. I decided I wanted to see what was happening instead, so I went outside without getting caught and hid in some bushes. First of all, why would you do that? I genuinely don't understand. I couldn't really see anything, so I moved a bit further. A canal runs past the back of the school, and I saw teachers standing on the path and looking around. They went behind the building next to it where I couldn't see and were presumably heading back to the school gate. After about 20 seconds, I saw a clown walk on the path the teachers were on. He saw me and waved, but being a British 15-year-old, I naturally gave him the finger in return. He then carried on down the path where the teachers had gone and where I couldn't see. I was about to get up and leave when I heard a commotion. I looked up and saw the clown running as fast as he physically could. About 5 of my teachers came running after him seconds later. One, a mid-40s fat man, literally jumped on top of him and started hitting him. The teacher who found me told me to wait in the front office for her. I left, but not before hearing the clown shout, "Get off me." Based on stories I've heard from Americans, clowns just weren't the same over here. I don't know if I fully believe that one either. I know I'm really big skeptic about this Reddit stuff. But I feel like giving him the finger, I feel like that's not very believable. I just feel like you're trying to sound like whoever wrote this story is really trying to sound like they weren't scared or they didn't care about the clowns, whatever. I just don't really believe it. I really do wonder how different all the clown stuff was during that time over in the UK. Like if they had like similar experiences. Because that story, like they said, based on stories that they've heard from Americans, they just weren't the same. So was it worse? Was it less violent? I will have to look into that because I would really like to know. This next story is pretty short. I'm just going to read it anyways. It's from 5 years ago. I lived in a large clown area in a suburban town, and I was young but remember the events that occurred. Clowns were running up to doors and banging on them at all hours of the night, then running into the darkness and hiding. Nobody owned guns or anything. They were all liberal, so nobody did anything. It got violent slightly and scary until they all stopped because something unknown and really bad happened. I was younger and don't know exactly what, but there were search helicopters flying around, so that was very scary. Okay, so that story kind of sucked because there's absolutely no detail. This next story is pretty short as well. It's from 4 years ago. In 2016, I was a senior in high school, driving home from my friend's house late one night, just before 11 p.m., my curfew. The road before you get to my neighborhood was a 2-lane road, trees on either side, no lights at all, and the speed limit was roughly 40 miles per hour. I'm out driving down it, and a scarily dressed clown jumped out of the woods and maybe 2 feet into the road. I had to swerve, I screamed, and it indeed scared the absolute crap out of me. Coming home late and driving past the place where it happened afterwards always sketched me out after that. Yeah, that's terrifying. That's really scary. I kind of believe that one though because I've heard a lot of stories like that. Like where they're just driving late in the middle of nowhere woods and a clown jumps out. This story is from 4 years ago. Before we built our house, our property was a trailer on 5 acres of dense forest. It was dark. I was spending the night alone in the trailer without my husband and was a little creeped out as the darkness fell. I see a flash of color in the trees about 50 feet away from me. The unnaturally bright color stood out amongst the green landscape. I completely panic when I see it's a distorted clown face staring at me. Despite the horror, I realize it's not moving at all. I decide to get a closer look. It turns out it's a deflated clown head, mylar balloon that must have floated down and was against a tree. It was so unnerving, a disfigured clown with a blank stare. Despite the relief that it was just a balloon, I started thinking someone crazy put it there to scare me since our neighbors weren't exactly close by. I feel like that story's extremely believable. Out of all of the stories that I've read today, I feel like that is the most believable one. I definitely believe that. That's terrifying. That's really scary. I hate being home alone and seeing something or hearing something, and then that's even worse. Like, you think that you see something, you go out there, it's actually a clown face. That's terrifying. I would freak out if I was home alone and I thought I saw something and I go get a closer look and it's a clown face. I would not. I probably wouldn't even go out there. I'd probably just immediately call the police. This story is from 1 year ago and it's titled My Killer Clown Experience. This story takes place around mid-2016, right in the heat of the whole killer clown trend. I don't know if trend is the right word there. A lot of people have stories from this time, and mine isn't as scary as others I have read, but I felt like sharing nonetheless. This was around fall break of 2016. My cousin and I were both in middle school, me in 8th, him in 7th, and I was staying over at his house one night during fall break. There were quite a few people in the house that night. Me, my cousin, his 10-year-old brother, his 3-year-old sister, 3-month-old baby brother, his dad, and his stepmom. Let me try and explain the layout of the house and yard. They lived in a rather large double-wide trailer that they bought and had out on a flattened part of a hill. Their driveway is a rather steep gravel slope that connected to the road at the bottom of the hill. Behind the house, up the hill, was nothing but woods. The nearest house was slightly down the hill to the left, closer to the road. That was our grandparents' house. With the layout set up, let me continue to the story. As I said, my cousin and I were the only ones still awake. We were watching TV, probably some sitcom on Nick at Night or something. We kept hearing noises in the woods behind the house. We could see into the woods from the window in the living room where we were sitting, but we didn't pay much attention to it since it was kind of windy. Plus, my uncle had lots of motion lights outside the house. In the back facing the woods, the side door close to the driveway, on the opposite side of the house, and on the slightly elevated porch that overlooked the front yard and the road. So we weren't too worried about anyone or anything actually being outside, since anything out there would have triggered the lights. We heard lots of stories and watched lots of YouTube videos about the whole killer clown thing, and to be honest, I didn't think it was real. I thought it was just prank videos. Something made up just to get clickbait views. Plus, we live in a small nothing town in northeast Tennessee where everyone and their dog owned some sort of firearm that included my uncle, a retired veteran. So we were never afraid of anyone dressing up as a clown, trying to jump out for a quick scare and a funny video reaction. We were sitting on the couch watching the TV show, the only light being the TV and the dim light above the kitchen sink that was only a few feet behind the couch. Suddenly, the black motion detector light came on. Suddenly, the back motion detector light came on. We did notice, but we didn't think anything of it. The lights were set on 10-minute timers. If it detected one movement, it would stay on and turn off after 10 minutes, if no other movement was detected. After 10 minutes, they went back off, so we figured it was just an animal, which wasn't uncommon. After about 20 minutes, I went to the bathroom down the hall. I did my business and washed my hands. When I came back, the motion light on the side of the house by the side door that entered into the laundry room came on and shone through the thin blinds that were on the door. I swore I heard what sounded like footsteps on the gravel outside. Then the doorknob started rattling quickly like someone was trying to open it. I ran into the living room and got back in my spot on the couch. Luckily, the blinds were shut, so whatever it was didn't see me. I knew my cousin heard the same thing. I did because he was already up and halfway into his dad's room to wake him up. At that point, I saw the light from the front porch come on, so I got up to look out the window and looked out to the porch. By this point, my uncle had his pistol and flashlight and was out on the front porch looking for who or whatever it was. My cousin and I were behind him on the porch watching. He looked around with the flashlight when he saw it. There, at the bottom of the hill, in the ditch by the road, was a clown. It was a crappy costume, one from probably Walmart or Spirit Halloween. It just looked at us and waved. My uncle fired a warning shot, and the clown ran across the road and into the woods. My cousin and I didn't sleep anymore that night. My uncle stayed out on the porch for a few more hours to make sure no one came back. I remember him telling us not long after the shot was fired that he heard what sounded like an ATV starting up and driving away. Troublesome kids were always, and still are, an issue in that area. There are houses somewhat close to each other, but far enough that you couldn't see them. The only house we could see was our grandparents' house. I don't doubt that it was just a high school kid playing a prank, just trying to scare whoever it was in the house. Years later, after reading some more experiences with these clowns, of people's lives actually being threatened, it still scares me to think of what he would have tried to do if he was able to get into the house. That story literally gave me chills. I hated every second of that. That was so scary. That's so believable. Probably the most believable out of all of them. I hate that. I also love that at the end they did say they believe that it was just a high school kid playing a prank. That makes it a lot more believable because, yeah, that's probably what it was because nothing actually happened. And if he heard like the ATV driving away, it was probably just some kid on a four-wheeler. Scary. This story is from 4 years ago and it's titled Childhood Clown Incident That Still Has Me Wondering. When I was around 5 to 6 years old, my younger brother and I, who would have been about 4 at the time, were playing in our front yard as we often did. We lived in a very bad town in Southern California, a town that had a bad reputation and numerous tragedies, especially on the street we lived on. Suddenly, I heard laughter coming from across the street. I stopped what I was doing and looked across the street and saw a clown, full suit and makeup, standing on the upper balcony of our neighbor's house. The clown then took out an umbrella and floated down from the upper balcony and landed right in front of where my brother and I were playing. I remember the clown started talking to us, but I can't remember what he said. I just remember that he was very loud and would move his arms wildly when he talked. He then took out 2 large circus-style lollipops and handed one to each of us. The clown said something to us, then pulled the umbrella out and floated back onto the neighbor's balcony and went inside. The clown said something to us, then pulled the umbrella back out and floated up onto the neighbor's balcony and went inside. I always chalk this up to something I imagined since I was so young when it happened. I never mentioned it to anyone until I was 19. My brother and I were hanging out with some friends and sharing stories about strange experiences. I decided to retell the clown story when all of a sudden my brother's jaw dropped to the floor. His eyes were the size of dinner plates. He said that he remembered the clown and described details about the incident that I left out. I couldn't believe that he would even remember something like that. I was also in disbelief that it wasn't something I had just imagined. Now, this particular street had its fair share of strange and tragic occurrences. From murders, house fires, overdoses, it was always considered a cursed street. Could we have just imagined this, or was it something that was conjured from all the negative energy from that town? I find that story to be a little believable, but also it's Reddit, and also they were like 5, 6 years old, I think he said. So it could have just been something that they imagined or a story that they were told, and they just it could be one of those things where it feels like a memory, but it's actually just a story or a dream that you had. I think it's crazy that their brother recalled details of the situation and the experience that they had, that he left out of the story, and he thought it was just something that he imagined. I think that's really interesting for sure. Thank you guys for watching another episode of Get Scared with Gracie. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode. It was really interesting to read all of those killer clown stories. A lot of them not so believable, but interesting nonetheless. I don't remember a lot of the killer clown stuff that was happening in 2016, so it was really fun to get back into that and read the stories that you guys had on Reddit. I had a lot of fun with this episode, and I hope you guys had a lot of fun watching it. Bye, guys.